Okay,
Yeah.
NFL, week number 5. What do you like moving forward here? What do you think you like this week?
Yeah, I'm just glad you didn't ask me about this, Sky Riz universe, because I would need a full day to really kind of think through that question and come up with a nuanced answer. I really don't know. Week 5 looks a little tight. I have a handful of bets fired already. I guess in order of favorite, I would say Denver Broncos is probably at the top of my list over the Jets. I like that you're getting a team that, the market is adjusted off of the look ahead from 3 to 1.5 here. So it's getting you under the key of 3. On top of that, I'm expecting Justin Simmons is going to go for the Broncos, and he is a huge difference maker in that secondary. If Simmons is available and Surtain is locking down Garrett Wilson, I'm not sure that the Jets offense is going to be able to get much going at altitude here. And I think ultimately the Broncos offense looks to have been quasi-fixed. I don't know if they're going to be putting up 30 points on the regular, certainly not against the Jets defense, but I think they can do enough to get a win against the Jets in a decent situational spot. So Denver's on the card for me. I laid the points with the Philadelphia Eagles against the LA Rams. This is a little speculative that we're going to get some, kind of questionable news about Matt Stafford this week as he deals with the hip pointer injury he sustained against the Indianapolis Colts. And I think even more than that, if you're going to give me, a powerful and multiple defensive line up against this Rams O-line, I think that can be the distinguishing characteristic of this matchup and, really help tilt the balance in favor of the Philly defense over the Rams offense, which has been much better than expected, but still has a couple of weaknesses that I think can be exploited. And then on the other side of the coin, I don't see Philadelphia's offense being stymied here at all by the Rams defense. They just have way too many ways to attack, and their offensive line is perfectly capable of neutralizing some of the bright spots on that Rams D-line. So I think Philadelphia is going to score into the 30s, and I can see the Rams being somewhat kept in a bottle here. So Philly and Denver were the first 2 that I played this week, and those are probably my 2 favorite sides. Everything else on my card is pretty small edges, I would say.
Did you yesterday when we did guessing lines? I'm in a cocoon. I don't know the Bengals Cardinals line. I guessed that the Cardinals would be 1.5 point favorites, only to find out that the Bengals were 4-point favorites and told that it had already come down some at the time. Did you find that line? Now it's 3, I believe, painted everywhere. Did you find that was a ridiculous line?
I mean, the look ahead was 8.5. So it's not like, Bengals being favored was completely outrageous. 3 is a lot, though. And I guess even more than the Bengals, even more than the Cardinals getting bet, I don't understand why that total has gotten bet up. You're looking at a high on the board right now of 45 offshore at a sharp book. I don't exactly know how Cincinnati is scoring with the way that this offense is playing right now. So that to me looks like a pretty good look at an under. I like that even better than I like Arizona in terms of side here. There's still some lingering questions in my back of my head about how Arizona, they're playing competitive football, but if you're not catching more than a field goal, I'm not really interested in being a Cardinals backer on a given week. So, Cincinnati looks broken, but I think that was a pretty disadvantageous matchup for them on the road at Tennessee, and it's not quite as dire with Arizona on deck this week. So, I still think that game's going to, kind of be finished in the 20-17 range. So, under 45 was my go.
Dr. Bob had the over in that game yesterday. Maybe that influenced the market. I don't know. He had the over in the Bengals-Cardinals game sometime midday yesterday. What from last week, and let's include the Giants and Seahawks from last night, but what from that slate of games sort of gave you the most pause where you're like, ooh, I need to perhaps rethink this?
Well, definitely the Giants. that was one of my more confident sides of the week when they were favored. The market beat my head in on that one, and so I pretty much assumed it was going to lose before they even kicked off, and it was even worse than I could have imagined. And I think the Giants, the key takeaways there, it wasn't that Daniel Dimes was a little erratic and turning over the football. It was that the Giants' defensive line generated virtually no pressure. And that was against a complete mash unit of, second string players across almost the entirety of that Seattle, offensive line. That is now two pretty aggressive cluster injuries in the offensive line rooms, both Houston and Seattle, where it's not mattering. And I don't really understand how those teams are scheming around some of the weaknesses they have in personnel. The Houston one was a wild head scratcher because they were up against Pittsburgh, for crying out loud, and still CJ Stroud manages to avoid getting sacked all night. And then, that's kind of what's really confounding me the most is what exactly are these teams doing to completely avoid pressure. I know that they're getting the ball out of their quarterback's hands pretty quickly in a lot of instances, but still, when you have young quarterbacks or quarterbacks who have in the past, in this case of Geno Smith, been relatively significantly affected by interior pressure, and then all of a sudden some things that you're doing in scheme are completely arresting that, I think you got to pay attention. So there's been a long kind of obvious note that San Francisco's kind of has some very fun and interesting ways to really keep pressure from impacting the quarterback play, and Miami looks to have picked up some of those same signals this year, and they're implementing them. And certainly Houston, with Slowick going, has carried some of that as well. So there's something going on about the way that sort of the Shanahan tree is dealing with particularly interior pressure. That's, I think, kind of helping these offenses really avoid what has been sort of the key thing this season, which has been if you have a good interior pass rush and you're going up against a weak interior offensive line, you can just completely disrupt and stop the offense in its tracks. I mean, we had 7 teams that didn't score a touchdown on offense this week, and I think the common theme across those teams were just that their quarterbacks were under aggressive pressure, particularly up the middle. And I think, unless and until you solve that problem, you're just not going to get good offensive performances. You're not going to get solid quarterback play. I think that's kind of how you start a handicap in 2023 for whatever it's worth.
That's sort of a terrifying handicapping thing, though. If you can't count on cluster injuries to matter, that ain't good.
Yeah.
I mean, because
I agree.
Because I mean, really, if that doesn't manifest, you almost you cut it from the short list of things you could count on.
Yeah. That goes in the same sentence as stuff like the Bengals have invested so much in that offensive line. On paper, those guys are all outstanding pass pro, and they've had absolutely no hope of blocking to keep Joe Burrow upright, which is not helping his situation.
No.
It's pretty wild how important offensive line play has been through 4 or 4 weeks.
Thank you, Drew. Appreciate it as always.
All right, best of luck, guys.
Drew Dinsick at whale_capper.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.